Venerable Bhikkhu Amarasiri, he knows me for long period, but my friendship with him started only very recently, last year. Only I came to know him and the tradition in which he has come. About that tradition, etc., it is better that I will say Swami himself will say. So today he told that I will come there and stay for our own Satsaṅga. That was Swami's intention, but it was my request that we will have a Satsaṅga, especially just simple story of Buddha told by someone who has come in that tradition. Because so many stories are propagated. New stories come in the name of Buddha. Sometimes even in the name of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi also. New stories, everybody creates stories. So, my request to Swami was to speak about Buddha's life and teachings. Nothing purifies the mind like listening to the life of saints, sages, enlightened beings. When we say about Buddha, according to Buddhism also, it is like Vedanta only. There is a Buddha in everyone. Potentially, all are Buddhas. So this spiritual life is only to manifest that Buddhahood. To remove all limitations. Then the human being walking in two legs, with the two legs, becomes the infinite. I am using it specifically because there is a shloka in Mandukya Karika as the Dhyāna shloka. Dalata Shanti Prakarana. The very name is very significant because the Alata usage. Alata means the firebrand. So when you whirl it round, it will look like a wheel. Like that is this creation. Like that is this mind. So this is an example used in Buddhism. And Nagarjuna especially has used a verse where he says a similar verse. The verse that I am going to tell now is where Gaudapadacharya says, Jnanena akasha kalpena dharman yo gaganopamana Jnēya abhinnena sambuddhaha tambande dvipadam varam. I bow to that adorable teacher who is dvipadam varam, who is the most revered being, who has walked this earth in 2 feet. And his jnanam is like akasha. Jnanena akasha kalpena. Akasha means infinite space. Jnanena akasha kalpena dharman yoga ganopaman. This verse almost in the similar way comes in Nagarjuna's work. And Gaudapadacharya is of course after Nagarjuna. So there is a question whether he took it from Nagarjuna. No. With respect they have touched that, and the dharma, the word used dharma for jiva, is also taken from Buddhism only. But to express the Vedantic idea. So there he says that great teacher whose knowledge is infinite like space, akasha, and whose jnana is like infinite space, and when he beheld the world, it is also infinite and he is also infinite. So there is no division, no jiva bhava. So this shloka Nagarjuna uses for Buddha, Dvipadamvaram, one who has walked the earth like any one of us in the human body, but beyond body. In Vedanta we say Jivan Mukta, one who is here but one who is liberated, one who appears in all limitations but who is limitless. So this is the Vedanta Jnana we saw in Bhagavan. And we have been listening to this Vedanta Atmavidya, knowledge of the self, for so many years. Along with that, we have been speaking about many saints also. And very often we speak about Buddha for giving some examples like Vairagya. Most often quoted verse is Yadi janma jara maranam na bhavet, Yadi cha ishtaviyoga bhayam na bhavet, Yadi sarvam anityam idam na bhavet, Iha janmani kasya ratir na bhavet. So this is a very often quoted verse. So now this is a chance, very rare chance that we have got today, that Bhikshu is here, from him to listen about Buddha, to have that meditation on Buddha. Regarding philosophy, in the circle of debate, there is all differences are spoken about, Buddhism, Vedanta, etc. But yesterday we were having this discussion. In the core idea, there is no difference at all. It is not possible also to have difference. When you express it, there can be different opinions, but the experience is same. I heard somewhere that Shankaracharya's disciple Sureshwaracharya himself in one place says, regarding renunciation, regarding the higher ideals like having friendliness with all, no hatred, peace, truthfulness, especially yama niyama, etc. It is all same whether you take it Buddhism. Last week I was in a Jain monastery in Kerala. They were all very close with me for so many years. So whether it is Jainism, whether it is Buddhism, in Christian monastic tradition, everywhere this simple thing which is common for common people is purifying the mind. To have a very pure mind, and when the mind is sufficiently pure, truth will shine forth. As Shankaracharya says, Tan manas shodhanam karyam prayatnena mumukshuna. A mumukshu should do only this much. Purify his mind. When the mind is pure, Vishuddhe sati, when the mind is pure, Mukti karapalayate, liberation is like a fruit in your palm. It is available to you. So, purifying the mind in that aspect, something very deeply insightful, Swami was telling last year when he came here, that I was not simply after a teaching. When he joined the Buddhist monastery, he was saying, I wanted a way of life. So that is very, very important. It is not that you get a teaching, you have the knowledge, I have got enlightened and I live as I like. No. If that is it, so many enlightened people are there in Tiruvannamalai now. And around the world also. But the sages have worked so much. They have constructed this grand bridge to liberation, through which the senses are controlled, the mind is purified, life is disciplined, great dharma is brought about in life. This is the way of life, for which we call as sampradaya, the tradition, the parampara. So one who has come in that pure parampara, that Theravada parampara, they have their own name, Tisrena parampara. It is Triratna, right? In Sanskrit, it is Triratna. So that parampara, it is, I think, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam. So that parampara has come. So from him, we are having a chance to listen to the teaching of Buddha. So now I will give this mic to him. Arunachala Shiva.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang gunuttarang upajjayang namassami. Kalena dhammassavanang etang mangalamuttamanti. Aparutate sangamatas sadvara ye sotavanta pamucchantu saddam. Sharada sharadam bhojavadana vadanam bhuje. Sarvada sarvada smakam sannidhim kriyat. Yasyechaiva bhuvanani samudbhavanti. Tishtanti anti cha punarvilayam yugante. Tasmai samasta palabhoga nibandhanaya. Nitya prabuddha muditaya namah shivaya. So with the permission of Acharya, I would like to begin today's talk. It's a great honor to be here. Acharya has been a very great inspiration in my life. As far as I have known, I think the perfect combination of Pandityam and Anubhuti is present in Acharya. It's been a great source of inspiration for me before I became a monk. And it continues, Acharya continues to be a great source of inspiration. Last year when I was visiting Ramanashramam and we were talking with KVS Mama. So I'm also a Tamilian, so a few words of Tamil will flow in now and again. So if anyone doesn't understand, just stop me and say what. So we were speaking to KVS Mama, and KVS Mama said, he's here. So I was very excited. I said, I must go and see him. Because I knew that Acharya had taken Diksha, and but there was no contact. So I was very, very blessed when KVS Mama called Mauli. Shankar. Oh, called Shankar. And then I had an opportunity to come and pay my respects and my sincere appreciation to Acharya. His warmth and his humility are testimonial to this parampara, testimonial to the sadhana he has done. So when I was a young boy, we were taught many shlokas. But the one shloka that I always keep in my heart is Vidya dadati vinayam, vinayadhyati patratam, patratvat dhanamapnoti, dhanat dharmam tatha sukham. So it can be, Vidya, knowledge, learning, is what gives humility. So in another sense, you can say, if there is humility that comes out of learning, it is proof that the learning has worked. Vinayadhyati patratam. And this humility makes us a capable recipient. And what do we receive? Dhanamapnoti. This dhana need not be material wealth, it can be spiritual wealth. So dhanamapnoti, dhanat dharma. From the spiritual wealth or material wealth, dharma. Either dharma in the way we live our lives, or dharma in the way our spiritual life progresses. Dhanat dharmam tata sukham. And really this sukha is what all beings crave, all beings look for. And this sukha is what all our great teachers, whether it's the Buddha or Shankaracharya or Ramana Bhagavan or our own very revered and venerated Acharya, it is the sukha that we can see in them, and it is the sukha that resonates with us. Yeah, today if we are here, we can be doing so many things, right? But we are here. Why? Why are we here? Because there is a resonance. Because there is a shraddha that if I am here, if I am listening, if I can open my heart, listening not merely through the ear going into the head, but that coming down to the heart, then there can be a true transformation. That shraddha is very important. And that resonance is very important. That is the power of Satsaṅga. So as Acharya was saying, initially I wanted to come and spend some time with Acharya. And then when Acharya said, why don't you come and talk to us, share your ideas, I was delighted. I'm also there is also a little trepidation in me, because I don't have Acharya's Pandityam. I don't have the regular training in our tradition, but the training that I have had in the Buddhist way of life has been extremely meaningful. And the debt of gratitude that I owe my teacher in this life is something that we can never even dream of repaying. Then, having said that, what is Satsaṅga? Like I was saying, we're all here. Right? And Sangha is a joining, is a union, is a coming together. In Tamil, we say Sheyendu Varanam. Ellam Cheyendu Varanam. Everything, all the supporting causes and conditions must come together. And only if all the supporting conditions come together, is there a meaning? Is there something that is holistic? Is there something that is meaningful? So, the first thing is Satpurusha, Satmanushya, people of integrity, people of value, people of Shraddha, people of Maryada, all of these qualities, so people come together. Then they must come together with Sat Buddhi, proper intellect, not come with any, how do I say, not with any vitarka in mind, right? So you're here, you're coming to listen, you listen with an open mind. So that approach, that intention is very important. And see, really listen, right? To listen is a skill, is an art. So even when we are listening, one word will go in through the ear and the brain will create 2 or 3 thoughts immediately. Oh, this is not like this is not like that, that's not what I've heard, this is not what I've heard. Then that no longer becomes listening. So that skill of listening is one of the things we develop. Then Sad Vishaya. The Vishaya that we are talking about and discussing must be of good value, must be of good benefit, must be a blessing. And that Sad Vishaya, if it is discussed in the presence of a Sat Acharya, and the Anugraha of the Acharya then allows the Anugraha of the Satguru within, then the Satsang has attained Purnatva. Our life has attained Purnatva. Our spiritual sadhana has attained Purnatva. So this is not something that will happen in 1 half-an-hour session or 1 hour session. But if we approach it with this intention, with this thought, then, little by little, we can develop, our heart will open, and we can move from dukkha to sukha. So coming back to that idea of sukha. Tanat dharmam tata sukham. This is the only sukha. In fact, all beings, they seek sukha. And there is no Hindu sukha, or Muslim sukha, or Christian sukha, or Buddhist sukha, Jain sukha. Sukham is sukham, dukkham is dukkham. Right? Because it is a human condition. We are born in this human condition, and over the next few days we'll talk about how the Buddha describes this human condition. But ultimately this is it. Very simple. We complicate it unnecessarily. Right? But very simply spoken, for our life to have a meaning, for our life to have purpose, what is the goal? The goal is simply sukha. That's it. So, again, how do we get that sukha? That is the question. And this was the question that motivated the Buddha to leave his life and go in search of something. We'll come to that in a moment. But without this quest for sukha, life would be very dreary, right? Life would be very... In fact, sukha itself is misunderstood. Many people think having an iPhone is sukha, right? But then they realize once they get an iPhone 12, there is 13, 14, 15, 16, and then there is Pro and this and that. So where's the sukha there? More stress. Some people think, oh, if I get this particular car, then I'll be happy. So they get the car, then they want a bigger car, better car. Want a 2-bedroom house, then it becomes a 3-bedroom house, 4-bedroom house. Right? So very often people think that this sukha that we can get can be found in this material world. And it is true. The material world does give us some level of happiness. Right? It's not that it doesn't. If we do something really well, we are happy. On a hot day, if someone gives us something cool to drink, we have a nice glass of cool tender coconut water or something, we are happy. All these happinesses, that is not the sukha we are talking about. we are talking about a Sukha that goes beyond all this mundane things. And this is what the Buddha teaches. And this Sukha is nothing but Shanti, just peace. It is a feeling of contentment. It is a feeling of Purnatvam, which is the great, in the Advaita Sampradaya, Purnatvam. Adhane, that's the most important thing. Buddha offers the same Purnatva through the lens of Shunya. So we'll talk about that in a minute as well. So, speaking of the life of the Buddha, today where I would like to begin is begin just immediately after the Buddha's enlightenment. We'll talk about the past soon, but today I want you to imagine that there is this ascetic. He is sitting under a Bodhi tree. He is sitting in this place that hundreds of years later will be called Buddha Gaya. Right? It's very close to Gaya. It's a spiritual place. So he's sitting there, he's meditating through that Vishaka Purnima night. And in the morning, when he gets up, he has full understanding, complete understanding. The Buddha's first thought was, and this is not very often highlighted, but the Buddha's first thought was, what I have understood is something so simple, but yet something so subtle. Romba sukshmamana samacharam, what I have understood. It has a level of subtlety which is very difficult to communicate. So why should I bother? I'll just go retire to the Himalayas, or I'll go sit somewhere quietly in my own hermitage, and I'll enjoy this bliss of what he describes as the bliss of nirvana, or the bliss of nibbana, as we say in Pali. I'll just go and be happy. Right? And then one of the Brahma Devatas somehow received Sampati. Got the message, or telepathically he could read the Buddha's mind. So he came down and he said, no, please, don't do that. Out of compassion for humanity, there are people who have only little dust in their eyes. You remove that little dust, their vision will become clear. So just for that, removing that little dust, please stay here and teach. So he did. He taught till the time he was 80 years old, 45 years of teaching and service and charika, wandering. That's another thing. All Adi Shankaracharya was also doing charika everywhere, never stopping anywhere, just wandering, because they want the message to reach the masses. Earlier we didn't have YouTube, so they had to walk, they had to go, and so the Buddha went, and it's very inspiring. So he goes. So after Brahma Sahampati comes and makes this request, the Buddha says, okay, now I'll go and teach everyone. So the first impulse of the Buddha is one of karuna, compassion, daya. Right? Because when he left in search of what he calls the amata dharma, or amritya dharma, the dharma of the deathless, that which is never born, that which never dies, that which is not conditioned, compounded, fabricated, put together, that thing that can stay, in his own words, in the Pali scriptures, that thing that can stay without a hetu. Right? I have to find that. Why do I have to find that? I have to find that for the benefit of not just human beings, but I have to find that for the benefit of all sentient beings, whether they are pretas or devatas or yakshas or gandharvas or manushyas. That was his motivation, inspired by great sense of karuna. So with this great sense of karuna, he sits under the Bodhi tree and he reaches this state of understanding. And when Brahma Sahampati comes and says, please don't leave us, we want to listen, then that Karuna again blossoms in his heart. And he starts going. So he thinks, who can I go and teach? His father and foster mother are far away. Going there is difficult. Then he thought of the two teachers he learnt from immediately before he got on his spiritual quest. There are two teachers, Alara Kalarma and Udraka Ramaputra. These teachers have supposed to have taught him some very specific methods of reaching certain levels of samadhi. So he thinks about them and says, maybe I can go and share this knowledge with them. Then he realizes that no, they've already passed away. So what I'll do is, I'll go and teach this to the 5 people who used to practice with me. So there was a group of 5 samanas or shramanas who used to practice with the Buddha. And they were into very austere practices. One day I'll speak about that also, but when you listen, it's very frightening, the level of asceticism that the Buddha practices. So these 5 people are with the Buddha, and the Buddha is supposed to be the most ascetic. He would eat only 1 grain of rice in 7 days or something. All kinds of practices like that. So one day he realizes that what is the point of so much of torturing myself? Right? There is no ease in the body. Because there's no ease in the body, there's no ease in the chitta. Right? And I'm always tired. And when I'm tired, there is no brightness that comes up. There's no motivation to practice. So he says, I will follow the middle path. Neither indulgence nor self-mortification. And just then, just like how the universe provides, somebody brought him a bowl of milk rice, kheer or payasam or whatever. And she offers it to him and he eats it for sustenance. The moment he eats it, these other 5 shramanas, they say, oh my God, Siddhartha has lost his way. He is a prince. If he lets go of this way, he can go and sit in his father's palace and rule his kingdom. We are all ordinary people. Where will we go? We have to continue with this. So they leave him and they go away to a place called Sarnath. The official name is Rishipatna. Isipatana in Pali. So they are there in Rishipatna, which is called now Sarnath. And they are doing their own practices. So the Buddha remembers, okay, now I can go and teach them the subtle knowing. So again, very kind. He doesn't bother that, oh, these people have left me and gone off. They have such a poor opinion about me. Enak mariyadeye pannala, enna vittu poita. None of that, none of those thoughts. He said, yeah, they need it. And they are, they are ripe to receive this knowledge. So I will go teach them. So disregarding all the insult and disregarding everything, he goes and teaches. Goes to teach them. So this is another humorous part of the Pali canon. Theravada. So today, if you look at Buddhism, there are 3 schools. You have the Tibetan school, which is called Vajrayana. Then you have the Chinese, Korean and Japanese schools, which are Zen, also from Mahayana and Zen. And then you have Theravada, which is found in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Burma. Thailand is, so this Theravada is called the southern school. These are called the northern schools. And Theravada is a very sober kind of school. We don't have hats and we don't have bells and we don't have gongs, and sometimes I wish we did, but very sober. And this school has something called the Pali canon. Pali because it's the language. So in the Pali canon is where all the teachings of the Buddha are kept. And it's been protected over the past 2,500 years, and there have been mechanisms of keeping it going and keeping it authentic. So the funny thing about the Pali canon is that it shows the Buddha as a complete human being. I think it was Swami Vivekananda who said, you must... Hinduism, the great strength of Hinduism is to make the divine human and to bring divinity into the human, both ways. So that's why Rama, Krishna, Allah, they've gone through the same trials and tribulations that we have gone through. They have experienced dukkha, they have experienced all the, everything that a normal human being experiences. Right? And they are the divine, but they are humanized. We can see it. But when we see a human worthy of respect, like when I see Acharya or when I see Satpurushas, we must cultivate the ability to see them as divine. Devata Manushya Rupana, right? God in human form. So, anyway, in the Pali canon, the Buddha is shown as a perfectly human being. Buddha gets angry, Buddha gets irritable, Buddha has backaches, everything. And in the Pali canon, the Buddha is supposed to be the great teacher for us, and generally in the world he is one of the great teachers. But for this great teacher, Samyak Sambuddha, someone who has attained complete enlightenment, according to the Pali canon, his first teaching was a flop. So he is walking from Bodh Gaya to Isipatana, and he sees an Ajivaka Samana, mendicant, Ajivaka sect, this person called Upaka. And Upaka looks at the Buddha and he is simply awestruck by what he sees. Because here is someone who looks like a human being, but somehow is not a human being. There is such a radiance, there is such calmness in his demeanor. When you see him, you're inspired. When you see him, you just want to leave everything and follow him. Right? This is what he sees in front of him. He doesn't know who this person is. So, usually what do we ask? We say, who are you? But Upaka looks at the Buddha and says, what are you? Kastvam. Are you human? Buddha says, no. Are you a man? Buddha says, no. Are you a devata? Buddha says, no. Are you a Gandharva? Are you a yaksha? No, no, no. Then finally Upaka says, okay, you tell me, who are you? Buddha says, I am the Tathagata. Tat agataha. Tathagata. What is that tat? It's the tattva. Tatvamasi. And the tattvate na adanjachu. Na poi cheyandachu. Tatvamasi. Tathagata. I am the Tathagata. I have realized the tattva. So Upaka is very impressed. Oh, excellent. Who's your teacher? The Buddha says, I have no teacher. I've taught myself. I've practiced. I have seen how the defilements enter our mind, how they take force in the body, how something that starts as something very insubstantial as a thought, how it gets concretized with speech, and how it gets concretized with action, and the kind of fruit that it delivers. I've seen all that through my own experience. I don't have a teacher. So then Upaka is a little disappointed. So, Sari, okay, be well. And he goes away. Because for him, his thing is that how can anyone realize this by themselves without a guru? So, in Theravada, we say that the Buddha's first teaching is a flop because he was not able to convince Upaka of the depth of his understanding. So he goes to Sarnath and he meets his five ascetics who are practicing with him. And he teaches them the first teaching, which is called the Dharmacakra Pravartana Sūtra. In Sanskrit, in Pali, Dharmacakra Pravartana Sūtra. And this is considered the most important teaching of the Buddha. So we have heard a Mahavakyam, all of us have heard this, deeply impacted all of us. Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. The Jagan Mithya, this middle part, is what the Buddha focuses on. Right? He doesn't talk about Brahman being Satyam. He doesn't talk about Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. He simply gives us the tools to understand that Jagat is Mithya. And once you have understood that Jagat is Mithya, the other two automatically fall in place. The only thing that is Satyam can be Brahman. And then you automatically realize that Jiva and Jivatma and Paramatma are, they're not, Jivatma and Brahman are not apara, they're not para, they're not separate from each other. So this is if I have to describe the teaching of the Buddha in a context of Advaita Vedanta, this is how I would. He gives us the tools to understand Jagat as Mithya. So again, Mithya doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. If we are walking and I hit my leg on the door, it's going to pain and it's going to bleed. So there is something there. Mithya is a delusion. What is there and how we see it and how we understand it is not actually the way it is. That is Mithya. This is what the Buddha calls moha. So, the Buddha says that there are three things that trouble us. First is dukkha, or not trouble us. He says, in this world, this worldly existence, what we call samsara, and he uses the same word, samsara. In samsara, there are three characteristics. He calls them the trilakshana, in Pali tilakkana. What are the three marks of existence? Anything that you take about samsara is anicca, anitya in Sanskrit. Ellame anityam, nothing is nityam. In samsara, anitya. Other thing is what he calls anatman, anatta. So immediately these scholars and these theologians, they have said, the Buddha said there is no soul. So Buddhism doesn't believe in the soul. I have read the sutras. I have never found any single sutra where the Buddha says there is no soul. In fact, he says, Attahi attano natho, attahi attano gati. Atmahi atmasya natha, atmahi atmasya gatihi. You can't get clearer than that. So, idella, scholastic debates, theologians, historians, they can do their work. But we are sadhakas. We have to approach it from the level of sadhana. Here is a teaching. Right? How is it applicable to me here and now? How is this teaching going to reduce my dukkha and increase my sukha? That is the only thing we are concerned about. So the Buddha, he says, when you talk of samsara, there is anicca or anitya, one characteristic. Second characteristic is anatma, anatta. And anatma he explains. We'll talk about the explanation in depth later on. But basically he says, anything in this world that you claim to be me or mine is not yours. Right? And whatever you look at as this, when you look at this structure that is called Amarasiri Bhikkhu, there is a body, there is a rupa, then there is a mental process, nama and rupa. This nama and rupa you have no control over. There is no you. That is what he says is anatma, anatta. We'll go into a little more detail. But in general, this is. Then he talks about dukkha. And dukkha is what he addresses in his first teaching, the Dharmacakra Pravartana Sūtra. And he says, what is samsara? Sarati, srigdhatu, something that flows, right? Samsarati. It is flowing and we flow along with it. What is it that we flow along? We flow along with our habits. We flow along with our likes. We flow along with our dislikes. We flow along with our biases. We flow along with our thoughts. We flow along with our opinions. And somehow, in this flow along with attachment, somehow in this flowing, we concretize everything. He says, why do you do that? There's no need to do that. He says, when you look at this human experience that we call myself, right, or yourself, or whatever, there is nama and rupa. But generally, people, they vacillate between two extremes. And in Pali, he says, atta kilamatanu yoga, or kamesu kama sukhalikanu yoga. Yogaha, he uses the phrase yogaha. So the first, kamesu kama sukhalikanu yoga. There is kama, right? There is desire. We are able to understand the desire. Somehow we are able to satisfy that desire, and that desire gives birth to another desire. Kamesu kamaha. And what do? We make a yoga out of it. We are experts of this is how we live our life. So this is one extreme, which we spoke about earlier, the iPhone 16s and the, 4-bedroom flats or whatever. Whatever is one's choice of addiction. Right? Kamesu kama sukhalikanu yoga. The other thing is atta kilamatanu yoga. So you harden the heart. Atta, self. Kila is to make hard. Kilamata, to make hard. Yogaha. So we are experts at that also. Right? So Atta Kilamatanu Yoga need not be some kind of self-mortification where we lie down on a bed of nails, or we stand in between burning embers or anything like that. What we do day to day, how we belittle ourselves, how we have there is no avenue or expression of finding joy within ourselves. Atta Kilamatanu Yoga. Because of thoughts and opinions and complexes and ideas. This is the second extreme. So he says, this is how we swing. Atta kilamatanu yogo, kamesu kama sukhalikanu yogo. And he says, now I'll tell you a middle way, which does neither of these, where you don't indulge in your desires, and neither do you make yourself hard. Just a middle way. And Acharya always keeps saying that the Buddha is considered as a great doctor, which is true. Vaisajya Guru, as he is called, the Guru who's the doctor. And his teaching is called the Dhamma Usada in Pali, or Dhammo Usada in Pali, which is the medicine of his teaching. And he has a very direct impact. Now let's say I have a stomachache. I want to go and see a doctor. That doctor says, oh, come, sit down. I'll give you the theory of why your stomach is paining. There is the digestive system. The digestive system has all these vital organs, and if something happens here, this goes out of balance. If something happens there, that goes out of balance. And so I'm like, I have a stomachache. Give me something. I'm not bothered about your theory. Right? The Buddha is not a doctor like that. The Buddha says, where does it hurt? Look at where it hurts, and I'll tell you what to do about it. And so he says, when we look at this world, right, we can see that there is dukkha. And whether we realize it or not, at some point there is always dukkha. Now, some people don't even know that they are experiencing dukkha. Oh, I have a wonderful life, I have a nice job, nice family, nice car. But they will be the most irritable, they'll be the most stressed. They don't even realize that they have dukkha in their lives. So, in general, we can see everybody has dukkha. So, the dukkha is the symptom, according to Dr. Buddha. Right? Dukkha is the symptom. Now, there is a cause for this. So, if I have a stomachache, a cause could be some kind of food poisoning. And he says the cause for dukkha is actually what he calls raga, craving, tanha, trishna, desire, right? And different grades of it, upadana, trishna, all of that, raga. Actually speaking, we'll come to that. There are different types of desire that he talks about, right? So dukkha is the symptom that manifests, which is the stomachache. The cause, the food poisoning, is actually the desire. Right? Then, or the origin of desire. Then as a doctor, he has to give a prognosis. I'm going to see him, I'm giving him his fees. Right? So the prognosis, he says, don't worry. Asesa viraga nirodha. This will go away without the slightest trace. That is the promise of the Buddha. That is the prognosis of Dr. Buddha. He says, yeah, your food poisoning will go away, no problem. Your stomachache will stop, no problem. And that is the third noble truth that he speaks about in the Dharmacakra Pravartana Sūtra, which is dukkha nirodha. So the first one, idam dukkham, we'll come to that, first noble truth. Second noble truth is dukkha samudaya, the origin of dukkha, which is what he terms as tanha, or he terms as raga, right? Then the third noble truth is the prognosis, dukkha nirodha. It will go away, and it will go away without leaving a single trace. So now he comes to the prescription. Prescription is the Ashtanga Marga of the Buddha. In Pali we call it Arya Attangika Magga, a noble eightfold path. Right? It is called noble because it is ennobling. If you follow the path, you will become noble. There's no two ways about it. That is why it is called Arya. Even if you do it without belief, it will work. Right? But still, Shraddha is very important. We'll talk about Shraddha tomorrow. But it is foolproof. This prescription is guaranteed. If you do it the right way, it will have the right effects. I remember Bharatiya Tirtha Mahaswamigal, when I was one of the times when I went to visit him, there was a person who came to visit Acharyal, and that person was saying, I've done all these things, they said do this homam, do that homam. Ellam panniten, ella pariharamum panniten. I've done everything that the astrologers have told me, but my problem is not going away. Why? Does it mean that all this is false? So Bharati Tirtha Mahaswamigal said, no, it doesn't mean all this is false. It means you don't have Shraddha. So that man got very angry. How can you say I don't have Shraddha? Because you're saying the results haven't come. If the results come, then you should have Shraddha. The results doesn't come, you don't have Shraddha. That's the pramana here. Shraddha irundha palan kadaikkum. Shraddha illana palan kadaikadu. So similarly, the Noble Eightfold Path, that is the prescription. If it is followed properly, guaranteed to work. Followed with commitment, followed with Shraddha, followed with Bhakti. Okay. So now we said these are the four noble truths. First is the symptom, that is dukkha. Second is the cause, which is desire. Then the third is the prognosis. Dukkha will completely go away. Fourth is the prescription, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. Now what is the disease? Samsara in a way, yes. Any other? Desire, yes. That's what the Buddha says. But again, that is the cause, right? That is the cause of that's not the cause of the disease. Is not the disease itself. Ignorance, avidya. Right? So again, comes back to in Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. It all begins with avidya. Buddha's teaching also, it all begins with avidya. Avidya pachaya sankara, sankara pachaya vijnana. We'll talk about all that later. But the beginning of all our troubles is avidya. What is this avidya that the Buddha talks about? Now, because avidya was very subtle to talk about, right as the first teaching, the Buddha brings in tanha, or desire, kama. But what? Kama is because of avidya. If you had vidya, there won't be kama. So to find a tangible manifestation of avidya, he chooses kamesu kama sukhali kanu yoga. This expertise we have of indulging in sensual desires. So it's very tangible. We can see it in our day-to-day life. It's wonderful. I'm having someone comes and gives me something nice. Someone gives me a bowl of ice cream. I have the bowl of ice cream. Oh, very nice, very nice. Second bowl of ice cream. Third bowl of ice cream. Right? Then I sit with a stomach ache. Right? And I get diabetes. Right? But I'm the expert at consuming all the ice cream without any regard of what's going to happen down the line. Kamesu kama sukhali kanu yoga. So, avidya. Okay. So, then he talks about the different types of desire. He talks about the ending of desire or the ending of dukkha itself. And he talks about the Noble Eightfold Path, and we'll talk about that tomorrow because I think 11 o'clock I have to leave. So, or do you want me to continue or eppadi? What usual time?
15 minutes.
Another. Okay. So we have another 15 minutes. Okay. So, what does the Buddha then say? Yes, there is dukkha. Dukkhang ariya satsaṅga. This is the first noble truth. Now, whenever you look at Buddhism, whether it's Vajrayana or whether it's Mahayana or Theravada, doesn't matter whether you come from Japan or Tibet or Thailand, this Four Noble Truths is the basic Buddhism 101. It is the first thing in any Buddhist book. So everyone finishes it off very quickly so that they can go into the more exciting stuff. But this is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. My teacher's teacher says, what oxygen is to human life, the Four Noble Truths are to Buddhism. You cannot simply say, oh, I don't want oxygen, I want something more exciting. You'll be dead. Yeah. So it is the most essential, the most basic. And people come and ask me, I want to learn about Buddhism, or I want to improve in my practice. I tell them, just this one sutra, Dharmacakra Pravartana Sūtra, it is the practice for many lifetimes, not just one lifetime. Because it encapsulates everything in it. The Buddha himself says, the Buddha was brilliant in his use of upama, use of allegory, similes, all of that. So he says, suppose you're walking in the forest and you see the footprint of an elephant. That is the biggest footprint in the forest. So in that you can put in the footprint of a deer, footprint of a lion, footprint of a tiger, footprint of a cat. whatever. Just how the footprint of the elephant can contain all the other footprints, the teaching on the Four Noble Truths contain all my other teachings. Right? So for me, over the past 10 years, this has only been my practice. Just the Four Noble Truths, trying to understand them, trying to apply them. And that is enough. I don't... there is... Even in that, there is so much more to uncover and to learn.
Four Noble Truths, Sanskrit, our name.
So in the Four Noble Truths, Chatura Ari Samskritatliya. In Pali, it's called the Chattari Arya Satyani. So in Sanskrit, Chatvari Arya Satyani. Arya Satyani. Chatvari Arya Satyani. So why is it Arya? Why is it Arya? Because anyone who follows that will become noble. So it has nothing to do with the German connotation of Aryan. Please leave that aside. But the Hindu Sanskrit connotation, Indian connotation, something that is noble, something that is revered, something that is of value. Chatvari Arya Satyani, Chattari Arya Satyani, the Four Noble Truths. The first thing, the Buddha deliberately phrases these noble truths in such a way. So the first noble truth is Idam Dukkham Arya Satyam. There is dukkha. Idam Dukkham. He doesn't say it is my dukkha, your dukkha, or our dukkha, her dukkha, his dukkha, dukkha of the dog or the cat. No. Dukkham. When you say samsara, there is dukkha. That is it. Idam Dukkham. And there's a very important hint here. So, when you actually apply a little bit of intellect and you think, okay, idam dukkham, it no longer becomes my headache or my depression or my anger. It is something that arises out of causes and conditions, and something along with time and patience will go away. You have nothing to do. Why do you want to grab it? Why do you want to hold it? Why do you want to own it? Idam dukkham arya satyam. The other thing is that it is universal. There is war going on in so many places, and some really horrible things that make the heart heavy. Right? But I met a refugee family from Afghanistan who suffered quite badly, and they said, I asked them, I said, what kept you going? They said, we are not the only ones. Yeah. We are not the only ones. So, idam dukkham, these two important lessons. First, it is not mine. I don't have to own it. Second, it is universal. Right? There are others. So then, out of this, what happens is there is karuna that arises. Right? There is compassion, there is daya. Compassion for oneself and compassion for others. Then, the idam dukkham arya satyam. Now, along with the Four Noble Truths, there are 4 tasks that we have to do. So the Buddha doesn't stop by saying this is the Noble Truth. He says, you have to understand. So for the first Noble Truth, the task is pariññeyam. I have to understand. I have to understand idam dukkham. I have to understand the first Noble Truth. What is my understanding? Understanding is that first, I don't own it. This is not mine. Second thing is, I'm not alone in this. I'm not someone special who God has chosen this, or life has chosen this. Oh, poor me. No, there are others. There are others worse off than you. Right? So, these are the 2 lessons. So, the Buddha says, idam dukkham arya satyam. Pariññeyam. You have to understand it. And you have to understand it in this manner. Understand how dukkha arises, what causes, each individual is prone to different types of irritants and different types of conditions, but there's still the dukkha that arises. So, idam dukkham ariya satchang, and this has to be understood. Parinye. The second noble truth is dukkha samudayam ariya satchang. There is a arising of dukkha. There is a cause for discomfort. There is a cause for stress. There is a cause for suffering. Right? As what is our task here? So our task, you have understood dukkha, you have identified the cause, now you have to eliminate, let go of the cause. Pahinam. Let go of, not eliminate. Eliminate is a wrong word. Try and find out ways by which you can let go of the suffering. The third noble truth is dukkha nirodham. The Buddha says satchikatabhang, satyakarana. No point in understanding or thinking, this suffering is going to come to an end. You must make it a reality within, or we must make it our own realities. Right? So, and how do we do that? It's by following the Noble Eightfold Path. And he says, bhave tabbam. You have the Four Noble Eightfold Path, Arya Ashtangika Marga, has to be cultivated. It has to be experienced. Because unless you do it, you can't experience it. And only if you do it and experience it will the end of suffering manifest. It will become satya for yourself. So, there was some... I'll leave you with some homework. My teacher, who would always, when he speaks about suffering, he'll always say, in order to start understanding your suffering, you have to ask yourself two questions. What is it that I have and I don't want? What is it that I want and I don't have? These two you have to ask yourself. Okay. Then I don't want to start the next piece because it's a little long. So I'll end here and offer these words for your consideration.
We had a very divine session. It is all nothing but the same Vedanta. And what Patanjali says, avidya kama karma. Avidya asmita ragadvesha abhiniveshaha kleshaha. This is the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So I was telling His Holiness that there is a Dashavatara Stotra which we learned in our younger days, and in it Buddha also comes. And there is called as Yoginam Chakravarti, the emperor amongst yogis. Sabuddha prabuddostu machittavarti, like that very beautiful verse. Anyway, it is all yoga marga. Avidya asmita ragadvesha abhiniveshaha kleshaha. And just when Bhikshu was saying about Buddha's attainment, Brahma Sampatti, I was fascinated by that name. Because when he attained Nirvana in the Urubelva, there on that Purnima day, it is allegorical, where they says Brahma Sampatti Devata came. In Vedanta, Brahma Sampatti means full attainment of Brahman. Sampatti means absorption in Brahman. So Brahma Sampanna, Brahma Sampatti is a very common word in the Upanishads, everywhere. So Sampatti means complete absorption, becoming one with that. So there it is pictured as a Devata, because along with that knowledge of Brahmajnana, compassion also comes. In Bhagavad Gita, I am just connecting what I think they address in Buddhism as Bande. Right? What Bande spoke about, in Bhagavad Gita, says Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Na Shochati Na Kamshati. One who has attained Brahman, his job is finished with himself. Nothing more to do. Complete. Prasannatma. He has attained that prasannata for which Buddha was struggling, because as Bande told that first he had two gurus, that Ramaputta and Alar Kalama, where he has practiced so much of yoga and has reached a state of samadhi. But the problem with the samadhi is you come down, you lose it. As Bhagavan puts it in Aksharamanamala in a simple language, Pokkum Varavum Illa Poduveliyinil Arul Porattam Kattan Arunachala. He says, Arunachala, make me abide in that state where there is no pokku varavu, no coming and going. No question of today, now I am in that state and I'm lost. Not like that. So it was happening to him. So he was struggling to get hold of that. It is not a mental state. It is a recognition of what is eternally there, even before you attained it. It is not that you attain it, you recognize. That is why we give the example like a necklace you are wearing. And you are searching for it here and there. And the teacher comes, it is there. You are that. That moment you recognize, then it is not yoga, it is bodha. Yoga is which comes and goes. Yogo hi prabhavapyayo. You sit in Ramanashram, meditation room, for sometimes yoga is there. You come out, if yoga is not there, it is yoga. Yoga comes and goes. But bodha is awareness. One who has bodha is Buddha. One who has woken up, the awakened one. So, very beautiful one more thing which Bande said is those who are with little dust. There is a beautiful book by Arthur Osborne in that name. Those who with little dust. Because Vedanta also Yoga Vasishta begins with like that. For whom is this teaching? Says Natyantam Ajnaha No Tajnaha Aham Baddho Vimuktaha Syami Iti Yasyasti Nishyaha Natyantam Ajnaha No Tajnaha Sosmin Shastre Adhikaravan. Exactly all this is there in that sloka. He feels I am bound, there is suffering. Vimuktaha Syam. I will attain that freedom from this bondage. Iti yasya asti nishchayaha. One who has this resolve inside him. And he is not absolutely ignorant, not the enlightened also. In between. To him, this teaching works. In Bhagavad Gita, this example comes. With some people, ignorance is like the smoke that covers the fire. You blow the fire, smoke will go away. They are very ripe. They don't need an outer teacher. Just the smoke is covering the fire. More the fire shines forth, smoke will go. And there are some others who are like the baby inside the womb. Like the fetus or like the child, grown-up child also. You have to wait till it comes out. There also you cannot do anything. In between this, it is like the dust that covers the mirror, where a little cleaning will make you see the reflection. Like that is the people who come to listen. Those who are ready, those who are waiting to listen. Those who are waiting to listen. The moment they listen, they will wake up. So, sosmin shastre adhikaravan. Such people are adhikara. Those who are ready to wake up. For them is this teaching. So this is same. Then about this avidya kama karma. It's ignorance, desire, action, and the result. From the result, the vasana comes, samskara comes, then again ignorance gets strengthened. So ignorance must be removed. Avidya must be removed. So this is all same here also. Then the basic things like yama, niyama in Yoga Shastra, it is the basis without which there is no yoga sadhana. So that also we find in every teaching. So this is very, very important. And in Buddha's life we find that there is suffering and there is release from suffering. And once he was convinced about that, he just walked out in search of the truth, to attain that truth. And that attainment is what we are going to listen, continue. So, we have Bande here in this Arunachala Kshetra, where Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, we saw that highest manifestation of Jnanam, and so many great beings have walked this place, and now also many are there. In this Kshetra, we have this blessed opportunity to listen the life and teachings of Buddha. We will continue.